What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and I've got a bunch of news to cover today, so I hope you're doing well, and I hope that you've already remembered to crush that thumbs up button below the video. It helps spur me on to keep pumping out those new spicy topics. So I want to start today by looking at the games industry reaction to the Amazon MMO New World. Now, I hadn't known much about this game other than the fact that, well, it was in development by Amazon, and I had extraordinarily low expectations. They released some kind of pre-alpha or alpha-based footage on Friday, and I thought it looked pretty good. It reminded me of, like kind of Skyrim, Rust-style survival, but also some of the cityscapes and interactions with humans kind of reminded me of the early days of World of Warcraft. Now, most of the reaction of this game or for this game has been some combination of the following. Either tepid excitement based on, well, we don't know much about what Amazon's up to here, but also mostly, great, another survival game, or too late to the party. But to that, I would say, well, people said that about Apex Legends in the fact that it came out in an already very saturated space and now has over 10 million players. There is being late to a party, and that puts you at a disadvantage, but a truly great game can overcome that. People say things like, oh, it's a combination of Rust, Ark, and Elder Scrolls, forget it, not interesting. Well, people said that about Apex Legends, saying, oh, it's just a combination of Fortnite and Overwatch, boring, right? And people under the NDA have told me that it's a bit more than that, and have spotted comments around in different places saying they played the game. Certainly, I've been unable to verify that, but they say things like, it's actually much closer to a traditional MMORPG than a survival game. And although it does have some survival aspects, it's going to be something great. And it's difficult to underestimate Amazon's business mentality of throwing money at something until it succeeds. This game could actually be extraordinarily huge. Imagine a world where this game came free with an Amazon Prime subscription, or if it was free to play. We don't know yet what its price structure or cost structure is going to be, but it has crafting, fighting, PvP, warfare, and according to some of the people who have played it, this isn't a theme park. It's a PvP sandbox with hundreds of players to a server. No one knows where the story will go. That's Amazon's promise with the New World, and something MMOs have promised again and again, a systems-driven game where holding E to gather flint isn't just about crafting flint-based objects, but an entire flint economy. Flint wars, maybe. While it's open-ended, New World isn't structuralist. Guilds will have leaders who can set up permissions for members and go as well as they claim to develop specific plots of land with walls, crafting stations, storage, building, farms, and other infrastructure. Food and water aren't necessary to live, but they are necessary to fight well because they boost health and stamina. The best food can only be prepared by a skilled player chef. Imbious buffs, and what I'm told, can decide the outcome of a PvP battle. The best weapons and gear must also be crafted. The best crafting stations will only be available to player-run settlements. The best materials, meanwhile, will require expeditions into dangerous territories and other worlds work together, and you can become powerful both as an individual and a guild. I don't know about you, but this level of hype does sound interesting to me. I know that there are games out there like this, but here's the thing. Oftentimes players, when you read comments about video games, people in the gaming community are extraordinarily hot or cold. They'll either say, this game is the best thing ever, or they'll say, it's the most cancerous trash pile I've ever seen, it sucks. When the reality is, most games are somewhere in between. In fact, many games that you may dislike just aren't for you. There are a lot of games that, just aren't. For example, Battle Royale games and me, I don't really care for them. I can appreciate their success, but before I started doing YouTube videos about video games, I very well could have said things like, oh, Fortnite sucks, or PUBG sucks. When it's just a more accurate answer would be the game is not for me. I dislike that style of game. Player wars are structured similarly to EVE Online wars. Guild settlements must be maintained with a stream of resources or they become defenseless. If a guild saves enough cash to declare war on another settlement, even if that settlement is protected, the defenders must choose a time for a fight. At the allotted time, the attackers attempt to breach defenders' walls and blow up a protection sigil, powder kegs, or whatever other siege weapons end up in game, destroy it, and they can lay claim to the plot. You can have arts and crafts. You can do all sorts of things. On a hill above target settlement, we then dropped in camps where we were warned by the devs that defenders could spot our campfires and may attack. I like that little wrinkle. Do you telegraph your position with nearby campfires or risk a longer respawn run by placing them on the other side of the hill? And we're talking about very early footage. This game will probably be looking at 2020, I'm guessing. The early data, the early hype around it is Amazon basically said that a beta will be announced soon. New World is in alpha right now. Beta is coming. Their official site, of course, doesn't tell us much. If we look at it, I mean, really, you can sign up for the alpha. They have other games available here like Crucible and the Grand Tour. But for the most part, it's pretty quiet. I signed up for the alpha and I've received no information up until this point. But a lot of people are covering this game. Now, here's where things get, quote, problematic, of course. Polygon wrote a very long think piece about how Amazon's questionable MMO has you colonize the, quote, New World. That's right, it's racist, people. Here's the setup. I'm a settler who's landed in the pristine shores of the New World. I own nothing, so I scavenge and craft. I team up with others and build a settlement. I specialize in warfare or building or farming or manufacturing with my people. I defend our settlement from rivals. Perhaps I wage war, killing them and taking their homes and their resources. The game is set in the fictional, now remember, fictional, landmass in the Atlantic, located near Bermuda. The time frame mid-1600s, which is the same time period as the first settlements by the English colonists in North America. So this author is basically saying this fictitious world is too close to the American settlement and therefore has all sorts of problems, right? The New World's colonists wear the sort of clothes and armors you might expect to see a fictional account of 17th century Europe around the time of Plymouth Colony. That said, these colonists aren't explicitly European. In the player creation tool, from which I've not seen, I'm told that I can select from 2 genders and a variety of races. Oh boy, problematic already. The geography feels like an imagined pre-colonized British America with woodlands, lush meadows, swamps, mountain ranges. The swamp includes ancient artifacts of lost civilizations. There are no indigenous people. And according to the developer Amazon Game Studios, it's not really about invasion or America. But as we've seen many times before, games journalists don't care what the actual developer says. We've seen this with Ubisoft and their obsession about Drumpf, everything being about Drumpf or modern politics, regardless of when Ubisoft or like id Software, for example, with Rage 2 says, no, it's not political. We've seen situations where game journalists just say, yeah, well, it is because I say so. So here we're going to see a bit of that. Except there are human-like creatures in this Atlantic shoreline. They are shuffling zombies, variously called the Corrupted or Withered. They don't have identifiable cultures, but they are extremely hostile to settlers. They aren't portrayed like, say, the Wampanoag people that the Pilgrims encountered or the Algonquin-speaking civilizations in pre-invasion Virginia. So they're saying, yeah, they're zombies, but they're also Native Americans. The game's lore says they're former settlers, in quotations, who have been corrupted by the island, but I'm struck by how closely these semi-humans cleave to the exterminative view of the 17th century colonists that held of the people they found in newly discovered lands. So again, I know the game makes them Indians, zombies, but they're actually Indians for the purpose of my article, right? European settlers generally believed that newly discovered lands were forfeit because the indigenous people did not display Eurasian-style ownership and development. The settlers came to believe that these lives were worth less than their own because the indigenous people did not engage in monotheism or in the building of cities or the printing of books or the forging of steel weapons. The indigenous people were susceptible to common old world pathogens. When first encountered by white explorers, they were often found to be in the grip of the plague. To the white men, here is the evidence that these wretched men, women, and children had been abandoned by God, marked by their providence for extinction. They were the Walking Dead. And this video game that seems to literalize that disturbing metaphor. During an interview with studio head Patrick Gilmore, I put a version of this notion to him. He looked genuinely shocked. That's not really been our focus at all, he said. The lore of the game is that there's a tainted aspect to this world, that it's a Garden of Eden that has fallen from grace. So even the author of this article admits that the head of development, the head of the studio, was so taken aback by this absurd assertion, but they're still going to write this article. You could argue that this is precisely how 17th century Europeans viewed the New World. The game is undoubtedly a violent expression of the 17th century Atlantic colonization and ought to be treated as such. It is made and will be played by the heirs to that colonization. So, here we have exactly what I said would happen. The head of the studio said, absolutely not. And then in the very next paragraph, this game's journalist, and yes, for those of you that ask, no, I'm not mispronouncing that. I am saying journalist, as in a urinal, as in a thing men urinate into. Just saying. It's interesting, too, that the New World developed by the company as controversial as Amazon, from its treatment of workers to its tax avoidance and its environmental record. The conglomerate is arguably one of the exploitative organizations in the world, an aggressive colonizer in its own right. Right. Okay. Again, none of the people that work for this studio are Amazon. They're just people, all right? My own hypocrisy is at play here, too. Despite its grisly undertones, I find myself enjoying it. I thrill at landing on the terra incognita, surviving and then prospering. I slay the locals and rid the New World of wild beasts. But then I've been raised to love tales of imperialistic violence, from Stagecoach to Blood Meridian, from Zulu to Sacred Hunger. I've never escaped this taste for mythology. Okay. When Amazon is talking about gaming sandbox, what it really means, I suspect, is that it's a platform discovering new ways to have fun and build and cooperate, evade and organize. I hope it finds a way to properly confront the complexities of its historical inspirations. I think it will give the world a good measure of enjoyment and maybe some introspection too. Yeah, that's right. What we all need, now remember, is video games to be more political. If a video game isn't political or apologizing for something it has nothing to do with, it's not good, right? I mean, if nothing else, the thing is, you would think that the journalists that write this type of content were actually getting paid to promote games. Because when I read garbage like this, it just makes me want to play the game more. Now, I'm curious though. Yes, I think we would all agree that Amazon is going to be late to the party. But my point is that they have the money, the marketing, and the existing customer base to make this a very real success. Do you think they have a chance? Are you 0% interested in this, or is it somewhere in between? I'm looking forward to hearing your comments down below. We'll talk to you again real soon.